Have you ever wondered what learning actually means? Most people might immediately think that learning is simply about reading books, memorizing materials, writing summaries, or listening to the teacher in front of the class. Well, that's not entirely wrong, but in reality, learning is much deeper and broader than that. Learning is not just about collecting theories, memorizing formulas, or getting good grades in exams. More than that, learning is a process of shaping yourself. It's about how you understand life, face challenges, and grow into the best version of yourself. According to Jean Piaget, a prominent figure in cognitive psychology, learning is an active process where a person builds their own understanding based on the experiences they go through. Meanwhile, a study from Harvard also states that learning is a process of acquiring new understanding, knowledge, skills, values, and even attitudes, whether through experience, education, or social interaction. So, in essence, learning is not a passive process. It's not just about sitting still and receiving raw information. Learning is active, dynamic, and continuous. What does that mean? Active, because you have to be directly involved thinking, taking notes, trying things out, and responding. Dynamic, because the learning process always evolves and adapts to changing times and conditions. And continuous, because learning never ends. It's not limited to school or university, but continues throughout your entire life. Now, so that you can better understand and become more aware of how the learning process really works, there are 6 important stages of learning that you need to understand and go through. This is simply a basic guide, so that you don't learn carelessly or just follow what others do without purpose. Number 1. Attention. This is the first and most fundamental stage in the learning process. Attention is about how you can stay focused, be aware of what you are doing, and be fully present mentally while learning. It's useless to sit in front of your book or laptop for hours if your mind is wandering somewhere else. For example, when your teacher is explaining something in class, but you are busy checking your phone, scrolling through social media, or thinking about things that have nothing to do with the lesson, that's a sign your attention is not there. If you cannot maintain your attention, then your entire learning process will be wasted. That's why you need to train yourself to focus. So how do you do that? First, set a clear learning goal. You can ask yourself questions like, why do I need to learn this? What's the benefit for me? Then, create a comfortable learning environment. Keep away anything that might distract you, such as your phone, noise, or crowded places. Choose to study at a time when your body feels fresh, not when you're sleepy or tired. Number 2. Receiving information. After you've managed to stay focused, then you can move on to the next stage, which is receiving information. This is the process where you start to absorb and capture the material you are learning. But remember, receiving information is not just about seeing or listening. You also need to be aware and truly understand what you are learning. For example, if you're studying history, don't just sit still and listen to the teacher talk. Take notes on the important points, understand the flow of the story, and ask questions if there's anything you don't understand. Many people often look like they're listening. They even nod their heads, but in reality, the information just goes in one ear and out the other. So, to make sure the information you receive doesn't easily disappear, you need to stay focused and visualize the main ideas in a simple and concise way. If possible, write them down. Train both your short-term and long-term memory regularly. Also, adjust your learning style according to what works best for you, whether it's through audio, visuals, or direct practice. Even better, if you can combine all 3 methods for maximum results. Number 3. Understanding. Now, after you have successfully paid attention and received the information well, the next stage is understanding. At this stage, it's not enough for you to just know or memorize the material. You really need to understand its meaning. What's the point of memorizing something if you don't grasp its essence? It would be a waste of your time, energy, and even money if you end up not understanding anything from the information you've received. Understanding is a very crucial key in the learning process. When you truly understand something, it will be much easier for you to remember and explain the material in your own words. You can even give direct examples from your personal experiences or from situations you encounter in daily life. For example, if you are learning about the process of how rain occurs, don't just memorize the sequence evaporation, condensation, and then rainfall. Instead, Try to retell it in your own way or connect it with your experience of getting caught in the rain on the street. That's what it means to learn with understanding. And to strengthen your understanding, get used to writing down important points in your own words. Don't hesitate to ask questions if something is unclear. And most effectively, having discussions with friends or teachers will broaden your knowledge. Don't be embarrassed or afraid to look like you don't understand, but be ashamed if you pretend to understand, only to end up clueless during quizzes, quanda sessions, or exams with a blank mind like someone lost in thought. Remember, the willingness to ask questions is a sign that you want to learn more deeply. Number 4. Retention, storing, and memory. After you understand the material, the next challenge is how to make sure what you've learned stays in your memory for a long time. This is what we call retention, the process of storing information in your memory. Remember this: when information first enters your brain, it goes into short-term memory. If you never repeat it or practice it, that information will gradually fade away. To move it into your long-term memory, you need repetition, practice questions, hands-on exercises, or even teaching it to someone else. For example, when you learn new vocabulary in English or another foreign language, don't just read it once and then forget it. Keep repeating it. Use it in daily conversations or stick notes in places you often see. The more often you interact with the information, the stronger your memory will become. But be careful, this retention process can be disrupted if your body is not in good condition, like when you lack sleep, feel exhausted, or are stressed out. So don't underestimate the importance of rest. Avoid using your phone or laptop during your break time, especially scrolling through social media. Try to focus on truly resting. Drink enough water, look at the scenery outside, wash your face, do some light stretching, or take a few minutes to relax. Even closing your eyes and calming your mind for 5 minutes can feel incredibly refreshing. Remember, rest is very important for your brain's health. Number 5. Application. Now, this is the most exciting stage and the one that really proves the results of your learning. Application means you start practicing and using what you've learned in real life. Learning doesn't stop at the theory. You only truly master something when you can apply it in your daily life. For example, if you learn a math formula, you should apply it when solving problems or even help your friends who are struggling. Don't be arrogant if you're smart and refuse to study or explain things to others. A person who truly understands the essence of learning won't look down on others. They are actually happy when someone wants to discuss and learn together. Another example is when you learn about ethics, you should apply it in the way you speak, behave, and interact with others based on what you've learned about ethics. So, the more often you practice what you've learned, the stronger that knowledge will be rooted in you. But if you just store all the theory in your head without ever trying to apply it, over time it will fade away and become useless. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. In fact, by trying and applying what you've learned, you will discover what's lacking and what needs to be improved. Number 6. Evaluation. This is the final stage in the learning process that people often overlook. Evaluation is very important to measure how far your learning progress has gone. Has it been effective? Do you really understand the material? Or do you only understand it halfway? This stage is crucial because it serves as a tool to find out whether the entire learning process you've gone through, starting from attention, receiving information, understanding, storing it in memory, to applying it, has been effective or still needs improvement. And evaluation doesn't always have to be in the form of formal tests or exams. You can evaluate yourself. For example, after learning something, try asking yourself, do I really understand this? Which part is still confusing? Or, has my learning method been effective? You can also have discussions with friends or teachers, or try doing practice questions. From there, you will know which parts you have mastered and which parts still need improvement. Through evaluation, you can get to know yourself better, recognizing your strengths and weaknesses in learning, then improving them and even developing them further so that your future learning will be much better. So you just know it, right? Learning is not just about reading books, memorizing theories, or doing assignments just because you were told to. Learning is much bigger than that. Learning can also be said to be the process of shaping yourself, building understanding, and preparing for your future. Learning requires a process, and the process is not instant. So you need to understand the stages in the learning process that have been explained earlier, such as 1. Attention. 2. Receiving information. 3. Understanding. 4. Storing and memory. 5. Application. 6. Evaluation. Now, everything is back to you. Do you still want to be someone who learns just because you're forced to? Just because you're afraid of failing? Just because you're following what everyone else does? Or do you want to start learning with full awareness, with clear goals, and in the right way? Remember, no one loses from learning. The real loss comes to those who delay and underestimate the process. Because life itself is a never-ending journey of learning. Therefore, starting now, set your own learning direction.